Hi everyone, this is Cheryl Brumbaugh-Duncan, and in this class session I wanted to talk a little bit about CSS and its inherent principles of inheritance of class style, or not class, but any style rules and their properties, as well as the cascade of CSS and how that works with a document. Notice that up here I have inserted an FLV or a flash streaming file into my page, and down below I have a Swift file inserted into the page. I've also applied a heading 1 to the title right here, as well as a heading 1 tag to this title on the page. Now in the CSS Styles panel, notice that I have a body tag rule. And down below, the properties I've set up for this is Georgia, Times New Roman, and Times, as well as a serif font. That's the font family. And on the page here, you'll see that my H1 tag adheres to a font of Georgia, Times New Roman, Times, and the serif font. And down here as well, the same font is used. And I applied this to the body tag. So what inheritance means that any child tag of the body tag, which in the body tag's case is every element on the page, will have the Georgia, Times New Roman, Times serif font applied to it. And the H1 tag is a child tag of the body tag, and it is assuming that font. Now notice that down here I have an FLV file inserted into the HTML page text, and it's in a sans serif font. In fact, it's in Arial, Helvetica, and sans serif. And if you'll notice, this is just a paragraph tag. And you can see that down here in the tag selector in the lower left-hand corner. Now, if I come back up to my CSS Styles panel and choose the paragraph tag rule that I created, you'll see I have a font family set up of Arial, Helvetica, and sans serif. And so this tag is a child tag of the body tag, but because I set that with its own tag rule and set the font family to Arial, Helvetica, and sans serif, it assumes this font style of the Arial, Helvetica, sans serif. Now if I delete this paragraph tag, and I'll go ahead and select it and delete it by clicking the little trash can in the CSS Styles panel. It will disappear, and notice immediately the paragraph tag, because there isn't a style rule controlling it now, assumes the font family of Georgia, Times New Roman, and Times serif font. And that's an example of inheritance. When you set it for a parent object or element on an HTML page, that whatever those properties are will be inherited by any children of that element. But you can override that by just setting another rule directed towards that element. Now the other feature I wanted to show you was the cascade. And the cascade, you might think, has to do with the order of what you see here in the CSS Styles panel. And that is not true. The CSS Styles panel does not set the order for which tag will be used to format an element. So let's say that I want to go ahead and set another paragraph tag. So I'll go ahead and create a new rule, And I'll click the new rule button down here in the CSS styles panel. I want this to be a tag rule for my paragraph tag. I'm going to keep this as an internal style sheet to apply it in this document only, which is at the very bottom of the CSS rules panel. And typically for your websites, I want you to use an external style sheet. But for this demonstration, I'm just going to keep it as an internal style sheet. I'll say OK to that, which opens up my CSS rule definition for the paragraph tag. And again, I'll go ahead and set a sans serif font, the Arial Helvetica. And then I'll go ahead and set a font size of, well, actually, I'll set a font weight of bold. And I'll say OK to that. Now, you'll see that that is applied to any paragraphs or paragraph tag elements on my page. And these two paragraphs now have those properties. Now, if I create another paragraph rule, and again, I'll make it a tag, paragraph, say OK to it. Now in this rule, I'm not going to worry about the font family, but I'm going to set a size for it. I'm going to make it 1M. And then I will also set a font variant of normal caps. And I'm going to apply a color of purple to this, as well as a font style of italic. And let's just go ahead and see how it handles setting a different font type. And I'll go ahead and make this a, well, just so we can see it, a Comic Sans Microsoft cursive. And when I say OK to that, let's see what happens to our paragraph tags. You'll see that this second paragraph tag, even though it falls second in my CSS styles panel, is now kind of taking control of our paragraph tag properties for this element. And it's applying these. And what happens when you have two identical rules, it will look at, number one, applying any of the properties that don't conflict. So in this case, I have a font weight of bold, and you'll see that bold is still applied to my paragraph tag. And when I come down to my other paragraph, you'll see that it assumes the color and it overrides the Comic Sans Microsoft cursive font style from the Arial. And it also applies 1M font size and a style of italic, and small caps have been applied as well to the paragraph. And the rule for Cascade is the style, if the browser or Dreamweaver for that matter finds two identical tag styles in the name of the selector type, such as the paragraph tag, it will use any of the styles that don't conflict from both tags. But where they do conflict, like the font family, it will always choose whatever style is the most developed or has the most properties and override the previously set property. And that's exactly what we're seeing in this our paragraph tags on this page. So I wanted you to understand a little bit about the Cascade and the inheritance of CSS as you work on your Project 3 and your Project 4 of building your website. As always, if you have questions, please let me know.